I'm going to go through this step by step. What you should be doing with this, the quizzes are very similar to the tests, but the test has more problems. So the quiz is just a shortened version of the test. So you might see similar problems, but not the exact same ones. So in this first objective, determine and identify the domain range zeros, slope, and intercepts. All of that would be in there. This is just a brief version of it. Here we're writing the domain. So think back to how we wrote domain. This is a continuous function, so it's going to be written as a continuous function. Domain, we're looking left to right, so we're starting at 0. And then it keeps going to the right. So this would be everything greater than or equal to 0. And if you had taken this quiz for real, this would be worth 1 point. Did you get the domain correct with the correct format? And then any minor or major mistakes, you get half credit taken off, unless it's like a complete right or wrong thing. 0, I usually only do or give out if you didn't put anything. So try. Questions on that first one? Okay. This next one, James is paying off his car loan. The equation is y equals negative 420x plus 16,000 gives the remaining loan amount y in dollars by x month. Describe the y-intercept in the context of the problem. So first, what is the y-intercept? That's the slope, 16,000. So we know our y-intercept is 16,000. So if we're thinking about what a y-intercept means, the x value is usually what for a y-intercept? If I were to graph this point, what would the x value be? 0. So keeping that part in mind, at 0 months, since x is months, it costs this, which means before he even started this loan, he had to pay this amount in dollars, or this was the deposit of the car. I'm just going to put 16K because I'm not supposed to follow zeros. But then you could also say that was the deposit. He had to pay a $16,000 deposit. So when you talk about whatever in context, think about what the definition of whatever that is means. X-intercept, y-intercept, domain, range, slope. And then how does that relate to your actual problem? So in this one would have been worth 2 points. Did you state what the y-intercept was, and then did you describe it correctly using the context? Questions about that one? Yeah.
How did you get it to 0?
So any y-intercept is always 0, comma, whatever y is.
Okay, cool.
Right. In the next objective, we're talking about transformation. So remember all of your transformation vocab: shifted for y-intercept, up and down; reflected if the slope is negative; and steeper and less steep. So for number 3, if the y-intercept of this equation changed to -4, describe how does the graph change. We have to include what the slope does and what the y-intercept does. So if it was at 2 and it's now at -4, what did the y-intercept do? Shifted down 2. And then what did the slope do? Did it say say that the slope did something? No. So that means the slope stayed the same. Now, if we were just comparing the slope in general, we could say the slope was reflected and it became steeper, but because I didn't change the slope here, that's not really what this one's asking. Questions on that one?
Why did it shift? Bring it shift down one.
Yeah, actually. It was shift down 6, yeah. Okay, and then for number 4, now we're comparing our original, which is what we usually do, to this new equation, and we're completing the statements. The graph of y2 is shifted, we're using this box, from the graph of y1. Which of these would be the correct answer? Up 3, because the y-intercept is now at 3, so up 3. You can write in up 3, or you can circle the arrow like I did. And for the second one, the graph of y2 is blank than the graph of y1. So that we already talked about the y-intercept and the shifted. Now we're talking about the slope. How does that change? Which of these would be the correct answer? Is this more steep or less steep? Less steep. Okay. Just so that we're all on the same page, the right is just there to throw you off. Nothing ever moves right or left. It's always up or down for y-intercept, and then steeper, more steep, less steep for slope. Questions on that one? Look over to the back. In objective 3, we are graphing a linear function in all the different ways, by slope-intercept form, by slope and a point, by 2 points, by x and y-intercept, by finding the x and y-intercepts, all those different things. So number 5, and if during the test you get a question where you need a ruler, feel free to go grab one. This one, I'm going to start at the y-intercept, -4, plot a point. The slope is 2/3, it's positive, so we can go up and to the right or down and to the left. Up 2 to the right 3 as many times as possible. And down 2 to the left 3 as many times as possible. This one's going to be cut off. And then you will draw a line through all of those points. Try to be as straight as possible. Make sure you're going through as many points as possible, and that you're drawing arrows at the ends. So the 2 points are really for, did you graph the slope correctly and did you graph the y-intercept correctly? Along with, did you fill up the graph? Does your line have arrows? Did you extend the line all the way through? Any of that missing, you would get points to take off.
This is just something that I know I've had a bit of trouble with. So when a slope is positive, you can go up to the right or down to the left. Okay.
And then for negative, it's the opposite.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. For number 6, we need to find the intercepts of the given function. So in this case, it does not state how. So you can either think about what the intercept would be and use the test method, or you can solve it for both, or a mixture of that. It does not matter. You just have to show me how you found these algebraically, and then also show it on the graph. So let's say, looking at this, in my head, I think the x-intercept is going to be -6. I'll use the test method for one and then solve it for the other. I'm going to put that in, 2 times -6 plus 6 times 0. And then I do get -12 plus 0 equals -12, which is a true statement. So I know that is one of my intercepts, -6, 0. And then I'm going to solve for my y-intercept by putting 0 in for x. I know this is going to be 0. And if I divide both sides by 6, I'm going to get -2. And again, you could check it just to double check. So my line should go through those 2 points. I'm not finding the slope here. I'm just graphing those 2 points. That was so complicated. Let's try that again. So the x and y intercepts, when you graph that line, it may not be as straight, but try to make it as straight as possible. Questions on that one? And then the last section is more of your context problems, comparing, contrasting from different things, tables, graphs, stuff like that. So for number 7, give a generalization about the x-intercept for any equation, include what happens to the y value. So one of the questions we already did asked about the y-intercept in context, where x had to be 0. So in this one, for the x-intercept, I know for any x-intercept, the y value is what? 0. So my generalization, I could say for any x-intercept, the y value is 0. That's all it's really asking. It just wants you to put that in words. So anytime it asks you to give a generalization, this should apply for all, not just certain cases. So if it doesn't apply to everything, I'm going to leave you a note like, hey, reword it like this. Alright, and then this last one, the function 12x plus 15y equals 300 can be used to find the number of cheese pizzas, x, and pepperoni pizzas, y, that the soccer coach can buy for the team with his budget of $300. The graph of the function is shown. So we have that equation in a graph. If he bought 10 cheese pizzas, about how many pepperoni pizzas could he buy?
12.
How'd you get that?
I went this one and then I approximated.
Okay. So cheese pizzas, we know he bought 10. If I go up on the function, it would be about in the middle. So 12 is right. 13 could also be right. 11 is probably too low. 14 is probably too high. And definitely not 10 or 15. So somewhere in the middle. So you can say about 12. Okay. 12 or 13. If it asks you to find the slope, you should be able to look at this to make sure you're counting accurately. Make sure you're counting the distance, finding the slope, and then that would be, your rise would be some relation of pepperoni pizzas to cheese pizzas. If they talked about intercepts, the whatever variable would be 0, so x-intercept, if they bought 25 cheese pizzas, how many pepperoni pizzas could they buy? If they bought 25 cheese pizzas, how many pepperoni pizzas could they buy? 0. So that, thinking about the x-intercept in the context of the problem. Questions on that? Any quick last-minute review questions from your study guide? So be able to find your slope from a graph from 2 points using either the formula or the words we talked about when we first learned slope. Be able to use your transformation words. Be able to graph a line in different formats. Be able to find your x and y intercepts from a graph algebraically. Be able to find domain and range from a discrete or a continuous graph. And then be able to talk about all of those different things in context of problems.
Is there any way that you could just go over domain and range?
So pick one from the review. So I would say pages 7 and 8. We could also talk about 9 and 10 with domain and range. So any of those. Which one?
Which one is it? Probably 46.
Just the domain and range or all of them? Okay, so if you don't have the study guide, I don't have extras. If you weren't here, that should be with the stuff I just gave you. So for this, if I'm looking at the domain, I'm thinking about the x values. Do I have a starting point? If this keeps going to the left, do I have a starting point? No. What about an ending point? Yes. It does not go past rho. I tried to look it. At 2, yes. So it's not going to go past that. So I can say it's everything to the left of 3. Would that be less than or greater than 3? Less than or equal to. So start off with your curly brackets. X, the line. X is less than or equal to 3. For your range, this keeps going down, and this keeps going up in both directions forever and ever. What would that range be? All real numbers. Where we use the Y, the weird E, and the double R. The Y-intercept, there's really 2 of them, and they're both kind of decimals. So you could make up, well, one of them is. One of them falls kind of on it. So I can say this one's at -2. And this one I'm going to say is at 1.8. Sure. So if you get something that is a decimal, make it up as long as it makes sense. 1.3 probably wouldn't make sense because it's closer to 2. And then the 0, remember that's another word for x-intercept. Where is that? At 3. Any other last-minute questions? So, I'm going to have you guys clear off your desk except for your calculator. I'm going to give you guys little folders. When you finish your test, you can put it in this bin. And then afterwards, if you have not finished your Delta Math, you're working on Delta Math. any ones that you need to finish. If you have finished, then you can work on other schoolwork. We are not grabbing phones until towards the end of class. Questions on what we're doing after the test?